Hi there. I am Ted. Today, we're going to talk about the founding battle of the last feudal regime in China, the Qing dynasty. Today's story happened in 1655. During the same period, England was in the midst of the First English Civil War, initiated by Charles I. Back our story. How did the Qing dynasty, a regime based on hunting and fishing with less advanced productivity and production methods, defeat the Great Shan Rebellion, which boasted a million-strong army? And how did it replace the Ming dynasty that had ruled China for 277 years? This war provides us with some clues. In the 1580s, during the Ming dynasty's rule over China, some Jurchen tribes lived in the northeastern part of Ming territory, known as Manchuria today. Nurhaci, the leader of the Jianzhou Jurchens, unified most Jurchen tribes under his rule through military campaigns from the 1580s to the 1610s. This tribal alliance is known as Qing. Nurhaci's most significant reform was the integration of Jurchen tribes under the system of the 8 banners, represented by the yellow, white, red, and blue banners. Later, he expanded this system to include bordered yellow, bordered white, bordered red, and bordered blue banners, establishing a comprehensive social and military structure known as the 8 banners system. This system facilitates the rule over the people and military mobilization of the post-Qing regime entrenched in slavery. After Nurhaci's death following a defeat in the Ningyuan battle with Ming dynasty regime, his son, Huang Taiji, continued his father's efforts to establish a new state. Taiji centralized power, adopted elements of Ming administration, and incorporated Mongol allies and surrendered Ming soldiers into the 8 banners. In 1635, he renamed the Jurchens as Manchus, and in 1636, he changed the state's name from Jin to Qing. With the conquest of Liaodong in the Battle of Saru, the Ming dynasty faced internal strife, famine, epidemics, financial bankruptcy, foreign invasions, and widespread banditry. By 1643, the Manchus prepared to overthrow the ailing Ming dynasty. During this period, the Ming dynasty burdened its people with heavy taxes, particularly in the form of land rents, where landlords took a significant portion of farmers' produce. In regions like Jiangnan, the taxation was even more severe, far exceeding the typical 1/5 share, with land increasingly falling into the hands of the ruling class. Economic exploitation and taxation stifled the development of capitalism, especially in the face of Ming's strict maritime policies and the decline of mercantilism. At the same time, another crucial objective condition was that the central plains of China experienced nearly a decade of natural disasters, resulting in a significant reduction in food and cash crops. The backward distribution system and dense population in the central plains further magnified the power of natural disasters. This led to a large number of refugees who were forced to leave their hometowns in search of land and livelihood due to the inability to obtain food. During the reign of Emperor Chongzhen, actions taken by the Ming government exacerbated the situation. Due to insufficient funds for military operations, the government levied additional taxes to suppress the Jurchens in the northeast, quell internal uprisings, and finance military training. These extra levies further crippled the economy, pushing the people into despair. The uprising of refugees grew increasingly formidable, and the ranks of the impoverished swelled. Local officials struggled to cope, often praying that roaming bandits would spare their jurisdictions. With the Ming government unable to provide relief or amnesty, this vicious cycle intensified, leading to a surge in displaced populations. Seizing this opportunity, figures like Li Zicheng and Zhang Xianzhong established their own armed regimes in the name of the Great Western and Great Shan kingdoms, respectively. Today's story revolves around another protagonist, Wu Sangui, the son of Wu Xiang, the general of Jianzhou. He was tasked with guarding ShanHaiGuan as the general of Liaodong. ShanHaiGuan can be regarded as the ancient equivalent of the Maginot Line. It is a fortress complex built at a narrow pass, separating the territories of the Ming dynasty and the Manchu. During its construction, a large number of huge stones were used, and the walls were extremely high. The firearms possessed by both sides at that time could not make a dent in the walls. The Battle of ShanHaiGuan occurred when the rebel army of the Dashing regime had already captured Beijing, the capital of the Ming dynasty. The last Ming emperor, Chongzhen, had committed suicide, leaving Wu Sangui in a precarious position. Although he was supposed to be the military commander defending against the Qing forces, the leader of the regime he pledged allegiance to had passed away. Facing the overwhelming force of Li Zicheng's peasant army and the Manchu cavalry outside the pass, Wu Sangui found himself outnumbered, with only around 40,000 to 50,000 troops under his command. The Manchu's forces repeatedly extended olive branches to Wu Sangui, urging him to surrender, but he remained non-committal, preferring to adopt a wait-and-see approach. Meanwhile, Li Zicheng, as the victor, frequently extended gestures of goodwill towards him, promising titles and honors upon his surrender. However, Wu Sangui harbored disdain for Li Zicheng, considering their disparate backgrounds, as he himself came from a noble lineage. His father, Wu Xiang, and his beloved concubine, ShanHaiGuan, were still in the capital, leaving Wu Sangui in a dilemma. Ultimately, he decided to march towards Beijing and join forces with Li Zicheng. But halfway through the journey, he received a secret message from the capital, detailing two significant issues. Firstly, it reported that his father, Wu Xiang, a noble of the previous dynasty, was being severely tortured. Li Zicheng demanded a hefty sum of 50,000 taels of silver from Wu Xiang, threatening violence if it wasn't paid. Additionally, Wu Sangui's beloved concubine, ShanHaiGuan, had been abducted by Li Zicheng's general, Lu Zongmin. While it wasn't clear whether Lu acted under orders, Wu Sangui's fury was ignited. Feeling betrayed by his father's inability to protect his family, and the loss of his beloved, Wu Sangui regretted his decision to ally with Li Zicheng. He swiftly changed his stance, returning to ShanHaiGuan and rallying his troops under the pretext of due avenging for Emperor Chongzhen. He opposed Li Zicheng, attacking the peasant army. Upon learning of Wu Sangui's defiance, Li Zicheng decided to take preemptive action. He gathered his ministers and devised a plan to march towards ShanHaiGuan with 100,000 troops, intending to subdue Wu Sangui. To further pressure Wu Sangui, Li Zicheng brought along the former Ming crown prince, Zhu Zilong, and Wu Sangui's father as captives. Realizing his inferior position, Wu Sangui repeatedly dispatched envoys to seek assistance from Dorgan, the regent of the Qing dynasty. Meanwhile, the Manchu's forces were also in a period of transition following the death of Huang Taiji and a power struggle. Dorgan, ambitious and opportunistic, saw this as a chance to assert his authority. His aim is to seize this opportunity, bypass the barrier of ShanHaiGuan, and leverage this event to build one's reputation in political struggles. After Li Zicheng's rebel army departed from Beijing, they proceeded towards ShanHaiGuan and Wu Sangui at a relatively slow pace due to unfamiliarity with the terrain. Upon the arrival of the Dashing army at ShanHaiGuan, they issued an ultimatum to Wu Sangui, demanding his surrender. When he refused, conflict ensued. Wu Sangui, facing overwhelming odds, sought to break free from the encirclement. He lured thousands of rebel soldiers close to the city walls and unleashed the red-coated cannons, known as Hongyi cannons, with a range of over 20 miles. These cannons, acquired during the Tianqi era from Portuguese merchants who purchased them from England, proved devastating to the rebel forces. Despite heavy casualties, the Dashing army managed to retreat. However, they launched a fierce assault on the city, continuing the battle until dawn the next day. The defending forces began to falter, and despite outwardly aligning with Wu Sangui, the Qing forces had already advanced to a point just 15 miles from ShanHaiGuan. However, they refrained from immediately aiding Wu Sangui, instead allowing the two opposing forces to weaken each other. Within Wu Sangui's ranks, some soldiers began defecting to the Dashing army as the situation deteriorated. Sensing the impending danger, Wu Sangui urgently sought assistance from Dorgan, stating that he would not return to ShanHaiGuan unless the Qing forces aided him. Recognizing Wu Sangui's sincerity and the potential threat posed by Li Zicheng, Dorgan accepted Wu Sangui's plea for assistance. He ordered the Qing forces to attack the dashing army, but on the condition that Wu Sangui must shave his head in the Manchu style as a sign of submission to the Qing. In a precarious position, Wu Sangui had no choice but to comply with Dorgan's demand, symbolically surrendering to the Qing forces. He understood that he was now at their mercy, hoping that Dorgan would swiftly dispatch troops to his aid. Thus, he agreed to shave his head and submit to the Qing. With this turn of events, Wu Sangui and Dorgan formed an alliance. Now, while the dashing army initially had the upper hand, they began showing signs of fatigue and desperation in their eagerness to surround Wu Sangui's forces, initiating close combat. This presented an opportune moment to join the fray. Thus, Dorgan ordered an advance towards ShanHaiGuan, and in a sudden surge, the Qing forces charged forth. Caught off guard, the weary dashing army suffered heavy casualties despite their imminent victory over Wu Sangui's forces. Even with Li Zicheng personally leading the charge, the tide was turning against them. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Li Zicheng's generals advised him that they were not fighting against Wu Sangui's troops, but rather against the Manchu forces. With defeat inevitable, Li Zicheng had no choice but to retreat. However, before leaving, he ordered the execution of Wu Sangui's father, Wu Xiang, and displayed his severed head as a warning. Back in the capital, Li Zicheng wasted no time in proclaiming himself emperor and subsequently massacred Wu Sangui's entire family, venting his anger. This act severed any remaining ties between Wu Sangui and Li Zicheng. Though Li Zicheng had momentarily quenched his thirst for vengeance, the pursuing Qing forces were hot on his heels. The defeat at ShanHaiGuan dealt a crippling blow to the dashing army, causing their combat effectiveness to plummet. With many soldiers scattering in disarray, it became evident that the dashing army's boasted million-strong force was mostly comprised of civilians and refugees, lacking true fighting prowess. Moreover, their recent occupation of the capital left them vulnerable as they were preoccupied with looting, inciting deep-seated resentment among the Ming officials and citizens alike. Anticipating the potential chaos upon the Qing army's return, Li Zicheng made the decision to abandon the capital and retreat to the Jinshan area. Before departing, he resorted to his bandit roots, setting fire to the Forbidden City, reducing it to ashes, and sparing only a few palaces. Hence, the Beijing Forbidden City we see today is mostly a reconstruction from the Qing dynasty, as the palaces of the Ming dynasty were razed by Li Zicheng. On June 6, 1644, immediately after Li Zicheng's departure, the Qing army swiftly occupied the capital 2 days later without encountering any resistance, effectively seizing the city with ease. The dynamic between the Qing army and Wu Sangui's Ningxi Iron Cavalry shifted from cooperation to a hierarchical relationship after Wu Sangui surrendered to the Qing by shaving his head. As a result, before entering the city, Dorgan ordered Wu Sangui to lead troops westward to pursue Li Zicheng, accompanied by Prince Ajij's forces. Despite being in a weaker position, Wu Sangui had no choice but to obey orders. Therefore, he did not enter Beijing and instead headed directly westward. Subsequently, the Qing dynasty relocated the capital to Beijing, appointing Wu Sangui as the Prince of Pingxi. With this, the battle for the establishment of the Qing dynasty culminated, and the ShanHaiGuan campaign officially concluded.